Hi guys, my name is Sean. I'm a houseplant enthusiast from Jakarta, Indonesia. I like to nerd out to the science behind how we can keep our houseplants happy and to multiply them in our homes. So if you're into that kind of content, please do subscribe to my channel and send me likes. This video is going to be a three-part series. I'm going to cover three different potting mix here that I've developed, and this is actually very important because each plant family has evolve very differently in their natural habitat, and in order for them to be happy in our homes, we should give them the optimal conditions, and one of them, other than sunlight and watering, would be the potting mix that you choose for it. Don't get me wrong, any plants can literally live in any potting mix as long as you adjust the watering correctly. There are minor adjustments that you can do, so there's no right or wrong. However, if you give them the medium that absorbs and releases water and have that property where their roots really like, they will thrive for you. So the three mediums are the Aroid potting mix right here, the general purpose potting mix, and finally here we have the jungle floor potting mix. So do check out all three videos as I go through with you how to use them, what kind of species would thrive in them, and I will show you also around my home a tour of what my plants look like when they're potted in these mediums. I also explain, the why, like why do they like these mediums. So without further ado, let's get started. You are most welcome to the second video in the series, and today we're going to talk about the Aroid potting mix, and this is actually a popular one. A lot of people asked me. I did mention a lot of my potting mix in my soil video, which I'm going to link, and yeah, I'm going to go through them once again. So I've developed this recipe, and I did share with you guys, and I'm going to share with you again today. However, these are available on sale, already mixed, at Prima Flora, so you can order them by the kilo, but you may have to bring your own container because we don't provide those. We are plastic free. We're trying to be plastic free, basically. We're gonna be we don't want to be wasteful with packaging. However, we are also doing an online thing soon where we can have these available and shipped to you online. We haven't figured out a brand yet. I'm not sure if we're going to that route, because when you have branded your products, there's going to be a marketing fee, there's going to be a registration fee and all that, and guess who's paying for that? You are. So yeah, we're going to try to keep it simple and homemade for now, and let's see what happens. We're going to try to give you a very good price for these. And at the same time, I want to encourage for you guys to make this on your own. You can actually substitute a lot of the ingredients here based on common sense and what's available in your region. So without further ado, I'm going to quickly go through with you what we have here in this recipe. Okay, so the first ingredient is something that is chunky and barky. I use coconut chips here, although you can also use pine bark or even chunks of charcoal. And the reason why we want to do this is to provide something that's very fast draining, doesn't retain a lot of moisture or compaction in the potting mix. And also another thing is that aroids actually are mostly epiphytes. And by the way, this potting mix do work for your Hoyas and Dischidias as well. They're all epiphytes and they love this kind of situation where their roots really want to grip into something and hang on to it. Because once they develop these gripping roots, they're going to push out bigger leaves, they're going to grow faster, they're going to think that they're climbing in their natural habitat. Imagine if you gave them like a soggy clay type or peat-based potting mix instead. They will put out these mushy, weak roots that is not going to help them develop and climb up. So yeah, this is the whole reason why we want to use cocoa chips, bark, or something that is hard as the main ingredient. This is the majority portion of the ingredient. And next we have this andam, which is going to be their dry twigs. They're going to provide also a little bit of organic material. These are actually going to break down over time, and they also lift up the potting mix a little bit. They provide texture where air can actually move around in there, and also a little bit of that gripping properties for the roots as well. And then we also have burnt rice hulls in here, and again, I have used burnt rice hulls in all my ingredients because first of all, they're carbonized material. They're burnt rice hulls, so they provide a lot of antifungal and antibacterial properties. They also have a lot of silica in there, and they absorb moisture very quickly, but they also dry up very quickly at the same time. So this is very good at preventing root rot, which is one of the leading causes of plant death, especially your aroids, your philodendrons, and even any plants basically. They would appreciate a bit of that burnt rice hulls in here. And then we have a lot of big size particle perlite in here. And they provide a lot of aeration in the potting mix, allows it to dry out faster, brings air to the roots of the plants, which they love. So with this situation, it's really hard to overwater your aroids. And lastly, we also have worm casting in here, and that provides the nutrients in the potting mix. Of course, you still have to fertilize somehow, but yeah, the nutrients from the worm casting is going to create a balanced bacteria that is beneficial for the plant and help it grow better. And one thing that I want to advise with particularly this potting mix compared to the other ones around that I have is that they do need to be mixed in regularly, because there's a tendency for the finer particles to sink down to the bottom of the container that it's in. So yeah, you want to always mix it before you put before you pot up your plants. But yeah, as you can see here, it's very quick drying, chunky, beautiful, and your aroids are actually going to really love it. Also your Hoyas, other plants. I'm going to give you a quick tour around my house to show you what plants are doing well in this potting mix, so you know what I'm talking about. So let's start with this Gloriosum in this Aroid potting mix, and I apologize for how wet the potting mix looks because it rained really hard. It's rainy season right now, but as you can see, it's chunky bits of Aroid potting mix, and they love it. It's putting out like amazing, crazy new leaves. So I had it potted in this pot for about 6 months already, and it put out so many beautiful leaves. Previously I had to rescue this plant because it was in a very mushy clay-like potting mix when I got it, and I propagated also. So this plant is actually in my Philodendron Gloriosum care and propagation video, so do check that out in case you haven't, because I do show you how I rescued this plant. And here's a Raffidafora Tetrasperma, and I know I just propagated one last week, but surprise, I have 2 plants. And this is doing well also in a terracotta pot and aroid potting mix. I water this every day. Actually it gets dry by the end of the day because it's so fast draining. Right now of course it's morning and it just rained, and it's in terracotta, which means a lot of air can go into the roots. As you can see, it's very happy. I'm going to show you. It's also starting to branch out over here. And that bit is actually going into the darker part of the wall, and it's going to start to climb up, I think, the wall. So it's going to become a huge plant someday. Here's a Passazanum that is doing really well, also in an aroid potting mix. And actually, the 2 philodendrons here are actually also in that potting mix. However, I did top dress it with sphagnum moss because I'm actually, I don't know if you can see here, I'm air layering them. I'm allowing them to root into the moss pole, so I can get better roots. But yeah, trust me, in there is the aroid potting mix, and yeah, it's gonna provide gripping, provide environment for gripping roots and allow it to draw out pretty fast. And I water these very religiously, every 1 to 2 days. And here's some variegated Monstera propagates that are propagated straight into the potting mix, which is this potting mix. So yeah, with aroid potting mix, you can actually propagate your plants directly into it. No problem, and they're doing really well. And next to it here we have a Bilita Verigata, and it's also in the aroid potting mix. I need to transfer this to terracotta pot. Actually, it's rainy season and I'm scared to overwater this, gets so wet. But yeah, I put a bit of moss on the top as well because I want the aerial roots to grow into the moss and then down into the potting mix, because sometimes if you don't give them that moss, the aerial roots will just flail around and it will try to get into the next pot over. I'm sure some of you have experienced that. Yeah, so I'm gonna add this to my to-do list. That's my painted lady next to it, and yes, again, it's in that potting mix and it's really happy. Here we have a Philodendron Promania. I propagate, the main leaf died, but it's in a beautiful potting mix. And there's another leaf, and actually there's another one right here doing even better. It's got 3 leaves coming out. It's doing really well. And again, it's in that potting mix. And this is the Birkin that's in the same potting mix, very happy. And the Sharonii, and I also put moss over it because I wanted it to be air layered. I still haven't figured out if I'm going to propagate it or not, but regardless, it's okay to leave the moss here to let them develop more roots. Here's a Gloriosum. Oh my god, I just saw this leaf. I didn't see this before. Hello! Yeah, and it's in a same situation, although ideally I want to put this in a terracotta pot because this gets rained on every day now, twice a day even. It's raining crazy hard. And this is Philodendron micans that is like crazy. And what happened was that this was actually grown in this Aroid potting mix. I just put the cutting right in there and I found that they love it. They propagate so well, and this one as well. So yeah, I just stuck the cuttings right into the Aroid potting mix, and I think the crevices actually provide areas for the new shoots to come out, and they just love it. Like I have actually propagated philodendrons and pothos in general purpose potting mix before, but I noticed that there's a lot of yellowing. Some of the cuttings don't make it. Like I would say 20% of the cuttings actually died. However, when I put it into the Aroid potting mix, like just stick the cutting right in there without any roots. I mean with aerial roots, sorry, but not rooted. They like took off. I would say even 100% success rate. No kidding. Here's some Amedrium that is propagated into this Aroid potting mix. As you can see, this is growing a new vine, so it's beautiful to propagate them into this Aroid potting mix. And here are some jewel alocasias, Friedac, Black Velvet, and White Dragon. They didn't do so well in my general purpose potting mix. However, when I moved it into terracotta and this Aroid potting mix, they seem really happy. However, they cannot be left to dry out. I find that they do like it when it's like constantly damp in there, but not soggy wet, mind you. They don't want to be smothered in water. Back here are some of the micans that I'm propagating directly into potting mix. As you can see, I just stick the cuttings right into the potting mix for aroids, and they will take off really quickly. The new shoots are going to emerge from the crevices of the coconut chips, and they love it. And here's also a philodendron, I believe this is Gabby. As you can see, a new growth has emerged. So yeah, they do like to be in this Aroid potting mix. Here are some propagates. Gloriosum showed up here even though it died it rotted off, and I threw away the sphagnum. So apparently it appeared in another pot. And here's some Adansonii. This is sphagnum, but I'm going to have to move them into an Aroid potting mix soon so they can develop into adulthood. And here are some philodendrons. This is Tortum, Brantianum, and they're all in Aroid potting mix. I do sphagnum again. I want to repeat that again and again because as you can see, there's roots here, and the roots are going to go down and going to find moisture down into the sphagnum and into the soil. It's potting mix, I mean. But if you don't do that, the aerial root is just going to fly around and try to attach itself to things. And here is also a Parasol Verde in that situation. Yeah, you can absolutely dress your plant up in moss if that's your thing, but if you don't, that's okay too. But yeah. So here is my pride and joy. I think there's a little bit of overwatering here because it rained a lot, but I'm not worried. But this is the Cebu Blue that's in an Aroid potting mix, and I let it climb up a moss pole, and look at that leaf. Oh, it's getting bigger. Amazing. I'm gonna probably cut the top portion off and then put it back down into the ground so that it'll continue growing up into bigger leaves. So here are some beautiful Hoya Australis Lisa cuttings that is grown in the Aroid potting mix. And look at that baby leaf, how cute. And I put some sphagnum moss on top of the cuttings. They're actually just butterflies. And I just blanket the sphagnum moss over the node to make sure that they retain some moisture and never dry out. And then the roots are just gonna develop downwards into the chunky Aroid potting mix, and it's going to be so happy because it's an epiphyte after all. And here are some Hoyas from my Hoya propagation video, the massive one where I did 200 plus cuttings. I want to show you some updates. They're very much alive. This is in my Aroid potting mix where it's like coconut chips mostly, and how cute, they're all growing. This is growing a baby leaf. So Hoyas definitely love this potting mix. And that's that. Here's some lacunosa, and down here, whoa, this was actually dying before, but I'm glad I managed to save it. It's doing really well. So yeah, all of these are in the Aroid potting mix. Something ate the leaf. And down below, look at this new leaf. It's beautiful. I love showing you updates. What is this one trying to do? I can't. I think I need to free this guy. Let it come off. Yes, of course, I hope I don't knock off any baby leaves. But yeah, they're doing well. They like this fast draining type potting mix. And I have one here as an experiment where it's in terracotta pot, but I give it a general purpose potting mix here. But it's such a small pot and it's terracotta, it's gonna dry out pretty fast because Hoyas cannot sit in water. So this plant should do quite well, I think. This Raffidafora Propagate is doing so well in the Aroid potting mix. And this is the Epiphyte pinnatum Verigata, putting out a new vine. Also this one, same plant. Yeah, all of these are doing really, really well. And this is the parent plant of the Epiphyte pinnatum Verigata, and it's in a very, very beautiful chunky potting mix. And these are very prone to overwatering, so I put it in the terracotta pot so that this can be watered every 1 to 2 days, no problem. I've got some ZZ Propagates here, and some of them are living in a Aroid potting mix here because it dries out pretty fast. So yeah, they do need the drying out period between watering because they cannot be overwatered. And terracotta pot would serve them really well in this situation. Here's a Philodendron Cardinal in an Aroid potting mix. I overwatered this one time when it was in another potting mix, but after moving it in here, it seemed happy. I do water this every day, as you can see from the leaf marks. It gets medium to bright indirect light all day, and by the end of the day, the top of the potting mix will be very dry. So this Anthurium Veitchii hybrid is in an Aroid potting mix. They do love Aroid potting mix, Anthuriums, and I would actually sometimes top their grasses with sphagnum moss, but I haven't gotten around to doing that. So yeah, they like humidity around the roots, but they cannot be dried out as much as philodendrons, I noticed. They don't like that. So I actually put out my variegated plants to bathe in the morning lights. That's why you can get these beautiful variegations here, but I digress. So this is in an Aroid potting mix. I did top dresses with cocoa coir, but yeah, it's an Aroid potting mix. This variegated Adansonii as well, it's loving this morning sun. Yeah, and then this other variegated Adansonii as well. And finally, let me see. Yeah, this is a Thai constellation, and it's a very chunky Aroid potting mix. Loves it. They do love to dry out between watering, so just keep that in mind. Aroids do love that. These are some sansevierias that I'm rescuing, so spoiler alert, there's gonna be a video on that soon. And I give them my Aroid potting mix actually because it dries out really fast, it doesn't hold on to moisture for very long. Yeah, and they're very happy with this kind of setup. And here we have a lot of Scindapsus and Philodendron Gabi over there, Brazils, and this is a weed. Sorry, let me take you out. As you can see, I stuck these cuttings directly into the Aroid potting mix, and look, it's growing. Beautiful, I love it. And this Scindapsus takes a very long time to root actually. So these are also stuck directly into the Aroid potting mix, but as you can see, there's actually crevices here where the new leaves can emerge from. And here we have the Hoya Microphylla Verigata, and it is doing so well, so happy, having the time of its life. And there's originally 2 cuttings in here. I put them in the Aroid potting mix. However, I did stick to a few more cuttings. Like this is a cutting, I believe. Yeah, I stuck 2 more in there, so it's gonna be so crazy bushy. Here is a Moonshine Sansevieria in an Aroid potting mix, and it dries out pretty fast, of course. And look at that, they're giving me babies. 2 babies instead. This is a bit squished. I think it needs a bigger pot, but I do want to see them squish. So it's a beautiful look. There's an Alocasia here and a Colocasia, not to be confused. Alocasias are a distant relative. Colocasias, I find that they do like to have, oh, look at this, how beautiful. They do like to be moist. They do not want to dry out at all, completely. So this is another baby Alocasia. So yeah, these are all in Aroid potting mix. So, but I do water them differently. For this Alocasia, I can let them dry out a little bit more than the Colocasias. This is the Black Magic, if I'm not wrong. Look at how beautiful the leaf is. Very nice. And here we have some Brandtianum cuttings that were propagated and rooted in water and then put into Aroid potting mix. It does want to remain on the dry side, as you can see here. These are signs of overwatering. You see the yellowing? I had this outside because it's rainy season and I figured they were going to suffer, so I brought them indoors here where it gets really bright west facing window, and I can keep the potting mix here on the dry side, because again, not all philodendrons are built the same. All my other philodendrons are okay outdoors, but this Brandtianum is not. Okay, so I'm going to take you to the last portion of the tour. Here are some variegated monsteras that I propagated directly into the Aroid potting mix. I've shown you some upstairs that has already established. This is too white. And yeah, they're all doing quite well. So give your aroids this chunky mix. They will appreciate it. You can also propagate them directly into it. They're quite safe. So yeah, I guess this is all I need to talk about with, there's some more up there, with Aroid potting mix. If you have any questions, do DM me at botanist. I will try my best to get back to you. Yeah, and if you're in the Jakarta region, Indonesia region, this is available for you to order if you want to try my Aroid potting mix. If not, you're more than welcome to try your hand at mixing your own. There's no right or wrong. And over time, I think with experience, you can start to feel like what your plants need and also what ingredients are available in your area, which ones are wallet friendly, which ones are crazy expensive. Actually, I would have probably propagated this into pine bark too if I had pine bark, because they're gonna appreciate that better. Sorry, I know that I said goodbye like 60 seconds ago and I digress. But this time for real, I will thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Take care. Bye.